the youth culture in Bangalore. And today we're taking stray rescue and wildlife rescue as our theme, and youth in rescue operations. And we have two guests with us. We have Kirtan from Charlie Rescue Center, and of course Subik. Welcome to Yuvavani. We are exploring youth on the front lines of rescue operations. And joining us today are Kirtan from Charlie's Animal Rescue Center and Subiksha from ARRC Wildlife Rescue. Hi Kirtan, hi Subiksha. Could you tell us more about your journey to becoming a rescue operator?
Hello guys, good morning, and it's very nice to be here. So my journey started in 2018 from Charlie's Animal Rescue Center. I started as a educator and then slowly got promoted as the shelter manager right now. So our daily routine happens to be like, we have two helpline numbers which receives roughly anywhere between 100 to 150 calls on a day. And, we pick up injured, infected and abandoned street animals. And we run a hospital which has pretty much all the equipments that is
enriching, because it helps you or gives you an opportunity to inspire environmental stewardship in the community and empower people to have a more eco-centric approach towards life. And that is something I'm really passionate about.
I'm very curious about knowing what got you guys interested in conducting rescue operations, saving strays and wildlife, because this is a very unusual stream of occupation, we can say, or adventure, we can say. So what got you into this?
So basically, I grew up in a family where we had a lot of dogs and cattle at home. And, while being with them, you understand why compassion is very important, And at a point, our family had close to almost 21, 22 dogs at the house. And, it was chaos and it was fun. So I always wanted to be a veterinarian. But unfortunately, I was very weak in mathematics, and that made it very difficult. I could never pursue my, veterinary science. And I was always curious and very keen in rescuing animals. And that's why I somehow happened to stumble upon my seniors who were already doing rescues, wildlife rescue, urban wildlife rescues. And that's when I was behind their back wanting to do something, wanted to learn what it takes to be a rescuer. And that's how the journey started. And what I realized is sometimes, if something is meant to happen, it'll happen no matter whatever it takes, right? And after meeting them, I understood, it is very, very easy to work with animals. It's very difficult to work with people. And in a field like us, it is very important that you learn how to work with people. And that is what they made me understand for the first 1.5, 2 years, teaching me that, handling people in a rescue is very important than handling an animal. And that's how it started.
We're going to get to that. And what about you, Subiksha?
So I've always been curious and passionate about animals. So I was the kid you would find running around behind the butterflies and the spiders in the backyard. And I think over the years, it's been a journey of, channeling that curiosity into something that is beyond myself. And it started off with, rescuing a stray pup if I come across, do whatever it is that I could in my capacity. And I actually was fostering 7 orphan pups. One of them actually had a paralyzed leg and I adopted her. And that's when I realized, all the challenges that these animals face and how difficult it is to actually help them, right? And I wanted to do something for these animals, for the planet, if I may say so, and to help people coexist and appreciate with the animals around them. And I went on to do my master's in wildlife sciences, and I attended a seminar that was given by our director, Ms. Jayanti Kallam, and that opened my eyes to the possibilities that are there in terms of how you can get actively involved in making that change. And I wrote to her what started off as an internship turned into one of the most meaningful aspects of my life.
Do you agree with him that it's easier to work with animals than with humans?
Yes, in some ways I do agree with that, because most of the times animals find themselves in this situation because of our actions. So yes, the change has to begin with people, and people are, it's difficult to get them to see where you're coming from. So yes, definitely navigating that is one of the most important things you have to learn as a person working with animals.
And what made you say that? Like, why is it difficult with humans than with animals?
See, any rescue scenario that you get into, the first thing that we do is understand where the animal is stuck, what is happening to it. And a lot of times people are compassionate, they want to help the animal. And, because of the Bangalore traffic or something, by the time we go there, it's sometimes, getting very delayed, right? And people might get volatile. They don't understand what is happening. And sometimes they think that when you call the helpline number, the help should come very quick. And when that doesn't happen, their mindset itself feels like, okay, you know what, they don't care about these animals. When you go there, you need to understand the situation, talk to them, convince them, tell them why it is delayed. And also a lot of times when it's rescue that involves any kind of risk, people think it's fun. If it is a dog inside a well or a snake, the first thing people will do is want to, assemble around the rescue scenario and, try to taunt us. Basically, a lot of times when we've gone for snake rescues, the first thing people will do is start hissing at you. And in a situation like that, what makes it difficult is you don't understand if it's the snake or if it's the people.
Oh.
And it might deviate your attention from the rescue, which should never happen. Because at any point of time, when you're in a rescue, your attention should be always around the animal and towards the animal. And what we do is when we go for the rescue, first thing that we do is we convince people to move away, keep them away from the rescue scenario, and then start the rescue. And the reason I'm saying it is very, very important to keep them away is because it is a risk for the rescuer and also for the people who are standing around.
How old were you when you did your first rescue? And how was the first experience and rescuing an animal? Who would like to take this?
Okay, so I think I was about 16 when I did my first rescue, which started off with dogs, of course, with those puppies. And, one of the main challenges that I felt was convincing my parents to let me foster those 7 puppies, right? Because at that point, you're not financially independent, you're dependent on your parents to support you. So I think that would be the biggest challenge that I faced at that point of time, getting the necessary support to do what you think is right.
Mm-hmm. And what did your family think? I mean, obviously his family was full on. Kirtan's family was like, like a nice, beautiful, home, family animal kind of a thing. But what about you? I mean, how?
My mom has always been quite supportive of it, but my father was the more logical person in the equation. So he was pointing out, I mean, now if I look back at it and I realize I was like, sometimes it makes me wonder what in me was it that made me, take that call and bring in 7 puppies when I didn't have my family's approval entirely. So yes, that definitely was, he was like, what are you going to do? What if nobody adopts them? How are you going to take care of these 7 puppies? So that is the aspect that he came from. But I think, if you put your point across to them, they are also willing to then see and, help you through the process.
So one was cultured at home and one got their home cultured towards wildlife rescue. You brought in a very important point wherein you said that, you didn't know what was inside of you that made you rescue those puppies. What do you think? I mean, you've lived with animals all your life, I think. What do you think?
See, basically what happens is you are drawn towards it. It's like an addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And once you're into that addiction, there's no going back. And you need to understand how to channel that addiction. A lot of times, in the recent trend that you see, a lot of your backyard breeders or these people who sell exotics are all animal lovers. And the reason why they've channeled their energy into something else altogether is because they think, okay, that is animal love. Selling animals is love. But the way we were channeled upon is that, my first rescue happened to be when I was in my 7th grade. A puppy got run over. I picked up the puppy and then I realized what to do. and either I had to go to my family and ask them, okay, see, what do I do? So at that moment, I am standing on the road holding the puppy and I'm crying. I see one guy who was passing by, he went away and he came back and asked me what happened. I said, see, this is what has happened and I need to take this dog somewhere. I mean, the puppy somewhere. Then he said, where do you take it? Then I was like, okay, I've heard about this veterinary college in Hebbal. I think maybe we should go there. He said, okay, hop in. A random guy on the road who I have absolutely no idea who he is. I hopped onto his bike. We went to the Hebbal Veterinary College, and that's when I started going around and asking them, where do I take this puppy to? So that was my first proper rescue, where I went to a rescue center. That was Q-Palm back then. And again, when I went there, they said, no, you know what? We are not going to take this puppy. Again, standing there crying, saying that, see, I need to do something about this. One lady walked out and she said, okay, you know what? We will take this puppy. Because I was standing there. I refused to move. And she said, okay, come in. I walked in and that was like a paradise for me. Dogs with 3 legs, 2 legs, hopping around. And for me, that is when I understood, okay, this is what, I have to do. And that is how I channeled my animal love into doing something that is going to save more animals.
So, how different is stray rescue from wildlife rescue in Bangalore? And it was only when we started writing that article that I realized that there is something known as urban wildlife rescue as well. I mean, I just thought rescue was rescue, So how different is both and how do you deal with that? Who would like to take this?
Okay, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So, yes, absolutely. Rescuing a stray animal and rescuing a wild animal, right? They are very different things. Your approach towards it also has to be different. For example, if you're working with a dog or a cat, sometimes if the animal has been around people, right, it can understand that you're trying to help it. I've seen that happen with the dogs that I've rescued as well. But the same thing with a wild animal, that is never the case. The wild animal will do everything in its capacity to stay away from you, right? And if it's in a state that it cannot move and you're going and approaching it, it is thinking in its mind, that's it, I am done for because a predator has caught hold of me. So that is where the distinction becomes very important, because when you're working with wildlife, minimizing stress, minimizing handling, keeping their wild instincts intact, that is the center of it, and how you approach it works around that. That doesn't have to be the same approach when you're working with domestic animals, and that is the distinction that most people do not understand. The general public, they would handle a wild bird or say a squirrel, a small squirrel, the same way they would a dog, and that usually, while their intention is to help the animal, it ends up becoming counterproductive. They are making the situation a lot worse for the animal by doing so.
Would you like to add or?
Yeah. So I started my working career as a wildlife rehabilitator, educator and rescuer. So what I thought is pretty much, wildlife rescue was a lot more easy for me compared to domestic rescues. The reason being is, when I go to a rescue spot, convincing people to say, okay, this is a wild animal and this is what we are going to do, was far more easy than going for a rescue for a dog or a cat that is injured, where these people are emotionally driven, and they think, okay, what do I do? Should I have helped more? And when in wildlife rescues, people think, okay, it's an animal, it's sitting there, and what should I do? So that is their response. Domestic rescues were always very, very difficult for me, because when you go for a rescue of a dog that has a bottle stuck on its neck, it'll run for its life. It is never going to come to you, irrespective of whatever you do. You're going to have to spend at least 5 to 6 days in order to catch this dog. And sometimes, you don't end up catching them at all. Because a bottle stuck on its neck, it can't breathe, it can't eat, it can't drink. Mm-hmm. That's a horrible ending that nobody should ever have. And a lot of times, even cat rescues, which are sitting on a tree, when we approach them, cats have either fight or flight. When they can't fight, the first thing that they'll do is jump off the tree. And to understand these situations was very, very difficult. And when something like this happens, people are very emotional about it. and they think, okay, you know what, I did something wrong. They always blame themselves, saying that, okay, I should have either helped earlier, I should have done something. And it makes our job very, very difficult. Because when people are very emotional, convincing them is very, very difficult. And whatever you say, they are going to blame themselves. And now in the recent times, social media is playing a very, very big role in this, because everybody wants to become an animal lover. Everybody wants to become a rescuer. How, even if they take a picture of an injured dog on the road and post it on Instagram saying that I want to help this dog, becomes a rescuer.
Okay, coming to the most interesting question which I found was what is the most misunderstood animal in wildlife rescue that you have dealt with in Bangalore?
I would say snakes. They are highly misunderstood. They are one of the most peaceful animals you can ever encounter. They are shy and elusive by nature. They will do everything in their capacity to stay away from people, right? They understand that overlap is not good. Every snake encounter that you see happening is because the animal accidentally was there at the wrong place at the wrong time. And given the choice, given the space, the animal's first instinct's like, ayo, what have I done? Why am I here? How do I get out of this situation? That is all that's running in the snake's mind, right? But people, when they see snakes, they don't realize that only a very, very small percentage of them are venomous. For example, in Bangalore, you find 4 venomous snakes. Out of those 4, only 2 are actually commonly found. You find the cobra and you find the viper. So if you know how to identify these animals, and each of these 2 also, right, they give you clear warning signs when you approach them. One raises the hood, the other one hisses. They're telling you, please stay away, give me the space, I'll move away. But people, they see a snake, the first thing they do is start panicking. They're like, the snake is gonna come after me, it's gonna bite me. And, panic sets in. When panic sets in, they're not thinking very clearly, and they often end up doing things that either puts the snake at risk, or puts themselves at risk, or put the crowd around them at risk, or the rescuer at risk. So that is why, every snake case that comes to us, the main thing that we do is try to raise awareness at every opportunity that we get. But what I've also seen is that is something wonderful about people of Bangalore. They are willing to change. I've been with the organization for 5 years, like I said. The number of calls that we used to get where people were like, there's a snake in an empty site near my house, remove it. And the amount of effort it would take for us to convince them that that's a perfectly normal thing. Snakes are found everywhere in Bangalore. Empty site is the right habitat. Let it be. And the amount of effort it takes for us to convince them now is drastic. They're like, okay, it's a rat snake, or even if it's a venomous snake, if it's in an empty plot, why you should let it be? If we explain to them, they are willing to listen. So I'm not saying that it's an easy process, but if you're willing to stay with the problem, and if you empower people with the right information, that can go a long way in changing that perception people have of these animals.
For you, you've already answered this question, what's harder, injured animal or hostile humans? Have you ever, at any given point of time, been threatened or stopped by people? I mean, encountered something like that as a young person, where you've had to deal with something like that?
So there have been multiple, scenarios like this. There have been good and bad scenarios. I'll start with the good scenarios. We take a dog that is injured from a community. You will have a mob stopping you saying that, why are you taking our dog? Which is good, because they are aware of the dog. And we tell them, what, this is what is happening. And a lot of times, people have been like, okay, you know what, we didn't know that our dog was injured. Can we come see him? And we've had people who cook home-cooked meals, like kebab, chicken biryani, and bring it over to the shelter to feed these dogs. And when I say the bad scenarios, I mean, when you rescue a snake, and that too from any of your politician's house, they would ask you to wait. They'll say, Saibru banda how nodbeku. See, when you rescue a snake, no matter whatever the scenario might be, you should never open the bag unless you're going to release a snake. But when it is coming from a politician, right? And this is where, your protocols are very, very important. No matter whoever might be, even if it's our honorable CM, we don't open the bag once the snake is packed. So that protocol is very, very important to save yourself and also the crowd. Because once you caught the snake, make sure that the snake is being released.
So this really brings me to the question, there are different systems that you have to deal with. How do you, and then you have the animal, the poor thing who's already stuck. How do you manage the system, the people, the paperwork, all of that? How does that work for you guys? How do you navigate all that?
See, we work under BBMP and like the current GPA. So basically what happens is when you get calls from your local ladies or the DD and the special commissioner, basic paperwork that they expect us to do is give them a reports every month saying that, okay, these were the rescues that we do. And on top of that, we also have to make sure that, all these cases are attended to, which are sent by our government agencies. The reason being is it gives them a confidence saying that, okay, you know what, we can rely on this particular organization, which also gives them a confidence saying that they can take in more, injured cases. A lot of times BBMP only, pushes off ABCs and other stuffs to people, but not rescues. The reason being is shelters like us are mostly full. That is a complaint that everybody has. You call this helpline number and they're going to say full. The reason being is we are always, overburdened, or we could take in cases that are beyond our housing capacity. The reason being is when you get an emergency case, you have to tend to take it in. And BBMP plays a major role in this because they get most of the calls. And right now, because they run helpline numbers also, all these calls are being deviated to us. So you have to be very, very particular about these rescues. The reason being is they're the ones who are meeting people regularly, right? And if they can't give confidence to people saying that, yes, we can do this, people will never trust the system. And that is why we proactively try to help them in any scenarios that comes to them so that they can always be confidently taking in cases from their end.
So as long as the system and you guys and the people, we are all working hand in hand, everything can be taken care of. Yeah. Do you also work with the government in this scenario?
Yes, we do work with the Forest Department, and we also work collaboratively with the 2 other wildlife rescue centers that are there in the city. And we have one policy. No call that comes to us regarding wildlife will go unattended. And we have achieved that, which is, if you think about it, quite crazy, right? How does no call go unattended? But we are able to do that because we partner with these 2 other facilities and we have come up with a system that works for us. So we have an app that was developed. So if you put in a rescue location, it shows who is this rescue the closest to. And if a call comes to us, say that is in Banshankari, which is close to another rescue center that operates in South Bangalore, we will forward that call to them and we will stay connected with them and ensure that that animal is picked up. But the call comes to us, the responsibility lies with us in ensuring that that rescue happens. So that way we are able to, in some ways, service a good chunk of Bangalore and most of the wildlife cases that are reported to us. And we also have systems in place. We have an app when you're talking about paperwork, right? We document every single case goes into an app that is accessible to the rescuers, veterinarians, rehabilitators, and reports are made and sent across to the Forest Department. But like Kirtan said, it is important for people to work collaboratively. It doesn't matter, you can pick a small area of Bangalore, whatever that, works with your bandwidth, but take complete responsibility for that area. Every case that comes, you're there for the community, whether it's an animal that's in distress. We get a lot of conflict cases. People don't want bats roosting in their AC vents. They don't want owls in their service shafts. So in some ways, we are like a one-stop solution for all problems related to wildlife.
What's the one behavior that humans must unlearn to be compassionate towards animals?
Overconsumption.
Oh, wow. She just ended it with that.
Yes, overconsumption. We are running behind consuming everything in excess. And I think that is where the problem starts. If we are able to control that one behavior, that one lifestyle change, it'll ripple through the entire ecosystem, and the beneficiaries would be too many, and that would include us also.
Would you say this is a very good career choice for the youth? And how do the youth navigate this?
See, it is definitely a good career choice. The reason being is you are making a huge difference in the society, and yes, there are burnouts, there are bad days, but there are beautiful moments that you will cherish throughout your life. And when you talk about this experience, people will look at you as a god figure. I'm not saying it in a way where you are saving life. You are just helping them at the right moment. You are destined to do it. So do the right way things. That burnout is very fast. The reason being is, imagine if I have 5 spaces at my shelter and I get 100 calls. How do I pick up only 5 out of the 100? So that's the first dilemma. And the second dilemma is when you bring an injured animal, which is very bad. When you see them and when you know that they're not going to recover and they're still wagging their tail, that breaks your heart. And rescue per se, people think that you can learn it over internet or YouTube videos. You can't. You could probably learn the protocols, but day-to-day scenarios can only be learned from somebody who has experience. Understanding, meeting community, talking to people, sharing knowledge, learning from other people, only then you can kind of mold yourself to be a rescuer.
It is important, like Kirtan said, you have put in all your effort into one animal, but when it doesn't make it, how do you recover from that? I mean, a lot of threats that our wildlife faces today, right, is indirect threats. This manja, the string that people use for kite flying, is purely recreational, is purely something we do for fun, right? So there is a ban on manja back in 2016, and again last year there was a ban that was imposed by the government of Karnataka. I would, do something to implement the ban on ground so that anybody who's found using, selling, or manufacturing this thing, some action can be taken, because so far in the past 9 years, we have rescued about 16,500 such animals from just this one problem alone. So if that one thing is taken out of the equation, I think this Bangalore would be a much safer space for our animals. And it's one of the most painful things to see, because these birds, the skies that they inhabit, that is their ground for hunting, for foraging, for moving around. We have turned that into a minefield. You don't know at what point when something will happen to them, where they will get stuck. So yeah, I'll go for the small wins. So yes, I would do something about implementing the manja ban.
This is a very important point that you made. So what is the age group that are involved?
In the last 5 years, we've seen a lot of young kids and, teenagers coming into this field wanting to make a difference. The reason being is, see, like how she said, the whole manja issue, nobody knows the intensity of it. People think, okay, you know what, they're trying to curb our, religious practices. No, it's not that. We would always use cotton thread to fly kites. We never had a concept of Chinese manja. And from 2016, if the government has not been able to implement the ban of manja, that itself is very, very sad, and that is why these young kids who are the, voice of the society right now, who are trying to go out and tell other kids to not do this. And the older crowd are trying to manage the bigger things. See, if people are wondering when is the right time to bring in a change, this is the right time. You need to understand why it is important to have animals around you. See, India as a country, we were worshipping animals. We always put our animals first, and then came everything. Our ancestors did that as because they understood the importance of the ecosystem with animals. Probably you could recreate animals that were extinct back then on AI. You don't have to do that while you have the strength to save them now. So do it.
You've been listening to Yuvavani, featuring Subhiksha and Kirtan on the front lines of animal rescue.